G'day punters and welcome to another episode of the Footy Form Guide podcast. I'm of course your host Wally, joined as always by my good mate Harrow. Harrow, what a weekend of footy we had. How are you tracking?
Pretty good, mate. And it's, look, that Monday game, you kind of feel like you lose a day as well, don't you? Because it extends the weekend. So we're straight back into it and I feel like it's only just finished.
Mate, it was incredible. We'll talk about that. And when I talk at the selection table, I'll talk about the Easter weekend as a whole. But we had some good results this weekend. Talk about the highlights. I don't know. It felt on social. It felt with the multis. It just felt like it was one of our better weekends ever.
Yeah, mate. We didn't miss much, did we? It was very good for the punters and for us, obviously. So the best bet, which we talk to every week, we had that on the Swannies. And I think that was covered by the 98 points or something, Wally.
Yeah, it was close. It was close.
Yeah, you don't mind watching those ones, do you? It was over very early. So we had a nice win there. So the best bet's tracking along nicely. Our followers on X, obviously, following the SGMs that we put up there, we hit two of those over $5 and we hit a $9 train. So that was lovely. The Lions versus Pies, I was very keen on the Lions, mate. They were another one that covered easily. We liked Freo to beat the Crows, and that was a tight one, but they got the job done. And also the under total points in the Port versus Tigers. They're the main ones that I picked out. There were others. There were good player bets as well and everything like that. But that was pretty much my favourite of the lot.
We didn't miss much. I know that we're a little bit stiff in the Good Friday over-under game.
Yes. Okay. So that's the one I've got noted, mate. We were under and it missed by 1 point. So it was very stiff. That was the main bet in that game, and it obviously went down to the wire and we just missed out there.
I actually had a mate, Joey, text me. He goes, I was cheering the last North goal and, because Carlton lost. And then I realised I was on the unders. I was like, oh, yeah, it was a tough.
I think it took a 9-goal last quarter to get beat us there too. So
the unders, it felt home the whole way. Even it didn't, and then just, I don't know. That was it was quite amazing. Anyway, mate, very, very good weekend. Hats off to you, Harrow. Absolutely outstanding stuff. Now, time for the selection table that we've been doing this each week, where I talk about some of the things in footy and betting at times that we want to keep in the team and some of the things we'd like to drop. So the first one in is Easter footy. How good was that? Good Friday dished up two crackers, varying like levels of footy, but that's fine. You got a couple of teams that are probably trying to strive for that wild card round, and you got a couple of other teams that are trying to strive for top four. But both games were fascinating and fun and just were awesome. That was really, really good. And then Melbourne's upset over Gold Coast, and I spoke about this, that Melbourne being one of those exciting teams I was looking forward to. I think we can put a line through West Coast being one of those, but Melbourne definitely. So they were incredible. And then Easter Monday. Well, that was about as good as footy gets. And it was just incredible. It was great to be out. It was nice to get one, because it's like Geelong obviously have had a fair bit of wood over Hawthorn outside of, when Hawthorn win the flags, they're usually good against the Cats. Outside of that, unless we are clearly a better side than them, they just beat us. So, and we're definitely not that at the moment. We're quite even. So it was good to have the win in incredible circumstances.
I think Jeff Kennett's to blame for the Cats every time they win, isn't it?
Yeah, Jeff, and losing a grand final when you go 21-1 in a season usually inspires you. And this is where I've spoken about this before. Hawthorn's three-peat came off the back of a losing grand final. But anyone can say what they want in their media. But the bottom line is, when you lose heartbreakers, it drives you against a certain team. And we all know that. And then I think that now it's widely spoken about. That drove them. And, it's been an incredible rivalry, which brings me to my next in. The Hawks and Cats is the best rivalry in the country. and in terms of AFL rivalry. It genuinely is. No matter their ladder position, yeah, there's the occasional blowout, but they absolutely go toe-to-toe with each other. They never disappoint. They leave everything on the park. I'll say Carlton, Collingwood, years of tradition, but they're not at the level at the moment. The showdown is the one I've always said is the biggest rivalry. They hate each other more than anyone. I think the Derby hate each other more than Hawthorn, Geelong. But at the moment, in terms of the pure watchability, I think it's the best rivalry. I'm not saying it's the most spiteful or hated or biggest, but I think it's the best. It's definitely, as fans, we feel it. I don't know where the players are at with each other, but I'll tell you, I know Bailey Smith likes Jack Ginnivan, which we saw on the field. But apart from that, I don't know how the players feel. But we hate each other as fans, and as we should, because you need rivals to hate. But I think at the moment, Harrow, if you're going to pick two teams to play against each other that have a rivalry, this is the game you want to watch.
Yeah, no, hard to disagree with that. I really enjoyed the game, and I think the season kind of needed it. It was, we hadn't had something like that happen yet. Two really good teams just going toe to toe and getting that really. The finish was amazing as well. So no, it was awesome, and it must have been unreal to be there.
It was. It was one of those games where it was just both teams would have felt like they were in it the whole way. Excuse me, coughing a bit here. But because of Hawthorn were winning in possession, and they were winning in possession, they were winning in contested possession, and that they were getting a lot of opportunity, obviously, inside 50 scoring shots. See, Geelong just kept keeping in front, but it always felt like Hawthorn were a chance. And then Mitch Lewis, Marby O'Child, Jack Gunston, it was huge. At Harrow, my last in is an obvious one. We're on the eve of the greatest round of football of the year. It is every year. The fixturing of the games isn't the best, so I'm not suggesting that if you watch all 9 games on TV, you're going to have the best viewing. But Gather Round is upon us, and this is kind of my grand final, Harry. I've got to be honest. I love Gather Round. I think Adelaide's a great place. This is a round of footy. It's absolutely outstanding. You get to watch all the games. They only have one overlapping game, which you kind of have to. You don't really have the choice. We know that. We've always said happy to have the overlapping with 4 games on a Saturday, but you get to watch a whole heap of footy. You can go to different grounds. There's community grounds. You go out of Avino in the Barossa and watch the footy. I won't be doing it now. I'll be around Adelaide, but I can't wait. So Gather Round for me is a massive, massive in. On top of that, we've got the Masters, Harrow. I love my golf, and the Masters starting. So you got the Masters for breakfast and footy all day. It doesn't get much better than that. And I'll tell you what, Harrow, because we want to have a positive week, and it is Gather Round week, I'm not doing any outs this week. I'm not doing any negativity. There's certain things I could have talked to, but I'm not going to this week. I'm letting it all go. I'm here, and it's just all positive, Harrow. That's all I want to be is positive. How's that sound?
Oh, good on you. Fantastic, mate. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a few clips I wanted to give today too.
Right, yeah.
Few clips, but I didn't. All right,
save it for next week.
I will. We'll see how certain supporter groups respond on social next week, and we'll look at it. And I don't usually worry about the supporter groups, Harry, because we're all as one. But sometimes you just gotta. I think there's some people that just don't watch the games. Anyway. Let's get on some questions from social, mate. Any players, teams to target, avoid at Norwood given the size of the ground? I'm paraphrasing a couple of these because we had multiple ones. But yeah, Norwood's an interesting one because it's a very narrow ground. It's very narrow. So is there any there in particular, Harrow, that you'll be looking at?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's Skilled Stadium is the most narrow ground in the AFL. This is actually 5 metres sort of more narrow than Skilled Stadium. So it's very unique ground. So the types of players, obviously, you're going to think it's going to be a little bit more contested, aren't you? So I know that I know Matty Rowell had a poor game on the weekend, but you think it probably sets up well for a player like him, don't you? Yeah, so those are the sort of guys, the guys that are going to be around stoppages a bit more. Also the rucks as well, because there's probably going to be some extra stoppages in the game, that sort of thing. And then I actually think the key forwards go pretty well too, because you have to funnel the ball through them. There's no really way to go, to be going around them, and so they get involved in more contests. And so the key forwards are often. It's not a bad ground for kicking a bag, I think. So these are the types of things that I'll be looking at when those Norwood games come up.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because one question from me without notice, Harrow, would you tend to avoid wingers that get a lot of the ball and a lot of the run?
Yeah, it's those uncontested. One, right? Yeah, but also the guys that play, because Errol gets fed the ball a lot, getting those little handballs and stuff. So he might still be okay, even though he's not playing. It's the guys who get like I should have prefaced that. I'm well aware, but it's that I was giving a standard. Sorry, people, I am well aware that Errol Goulden will not be playing for another 3 months. But it's probably a poor example. I should have said like a Massimo D'Ambrosio of Hawthorn, but like my point being, he's the perfect. Yeah, he's also the perfect type of Harrow. No,
but yeah, he's played.
Yeah, so they're the types of guys who have a high rate of uncontested possessions. They're the guys that I think you want to be avoiding there.
Yep. Okay. Very good. All right, mate. Now I'll just pick myself up. Moving on. Do you think bookies diversifying into more specific disposal markets have benefited or trapped more punters? E.g., everyone's talking about an increase in handballs, with the ability to bet on handballs and kicks and individual. I guess this is summarising this, and I've had a couple of people mention this over a couple of weeks. And it just mean there's more chance to win, more chances to lose. I think that's the case with any spread of markets. But do you see these markets as an area we should be playing into, the handball and kick market specifically, Harrow?
I know that these more obscure markets, the bookmaker is putting a lot higher percentage on them. So these tackles, handballs, hit outs, all these extra markets, the bookies are putting a huge percentage on them. And so for me, you're kind of playing into their hands a lot more. So for me, I haven't looked to play into them a hell of a lot, no.
And the other thing is, as we know, with disposal markets, a lot of the books will give you the over-under disposal. So you are getting the bet back the other way, so you can see what the bookie percentage is. I guarantee you now, you are not getting an over-under disposal on handballs and kicks anywhere. So there is no way of knowing.
Good shout. You know what I reckon about this, Wally?
Yeah.
Like, there should be a cap on the percentage that a bookie can put on a market, I reckon. Because it's kind of predatory behaviour, and I know they do it with pokies and stuff, don't they? Like the pokies have to run it like X percent, giving back to the punter. And for the bookies to be putting up like these, 150% plus markets, it's kind of gross.
Extraordinary.
And the regular punter has no idea what the percentage of the market is either. I mean, it's probably not going to happen, but, I just think from standing up for the punter point of view, that you shouldn't be allowed to set markets with such high percentage on them.
Agree, Harrow. You're not going to get any argument from me here at all. Do certain grounds lend themselves to higher, lower scoring, especially Norwood and Barossa, basically? So we know what happens in Adelaide, and we can talk to that. But Barossa it's a pretty small sample size, but Norwood we've seen a little bit more. Is there any total over-unders that we should be looking at certain grounds, or is this one more we'll cover game to game?
Yeah, I think it's a game-to-game thing. I know last year the scoring went quite high in Adelaide. It was really hot. I don't think it's going to be as hot.
Yeah,
it's
high teens, low 20s every day.
Yeah, with the small sample size, I'm more looking at the teams and how they're trending and that sort of thing, rather than thinking that these grounds are going to specifically create higher or lower scoring. So yeah. That's without a big sample size, you're kind of guessing, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, what's the best value trend we're seeing at the moment? Half forwards against the Ds was suggested. Riley Sanders getting 70% CBAs was suggested. Is there we get asked like this. We always get asked about trends, and I know we talk to them in games individually, but are there any trends for you at the moment, Harrow, that are really popping after everyone has played 4 games?
Look, we're seeing the defenders against the Pies go really well. Also, St Kilda and the Bulldogs to those positions as well. That's kind of repeating fairly consistently so far this year. Look, a different way to look at it, North Melbourne, their games are going really low disposal and they're being very restrictive. So you just got to do your homework, but there's definitely, now that we've got 4 or 5 games to look at, the trends are starting to emerge. And, without giving it all away, I think that there's definitely a few there for the punters.
Absolutely. Very, very good. And look, the other thing is, hit us up with this stuff, because there'll be trends that we miss that you get. And there'll be certain things. This is the whole thing about this. This is not like we're just going to feed you this, go and put this on mindlessly. It's about becoming better punters and learning. The amount I've learned in the last few years of working with you, Harrow, is just, it's completely changed the way I bet on punting.
I'll give the punters one more, Wally.
Go.
Rucks against West Coast. Okay, so we've seen that play out really strongly this year as well. But really, it's I like that idea, Wally. If you think there's a trend out there, I'm definitely not picking up on all of them. So hit us up, and if anyone hits us up directly with something good, I'll definitely get back to you about it. So, but look, I'll give you a few. Rucks against West Coast. We mentioned those ones, the backman, and then the North Melbourne teams going low against North. There's a few for you guys to keep an eye out on. But if you find something, let us know.
Who would have thought? North Melbourne, 3-1, and teams finding it hard to get a lot of ball against them. Maybe Clarko's not done after all, Harrow. Maybe he's not done. All right, last question we had on social was, how many games is Wally going to? Believe it or not, I don't actually go to as many as you'd think. I've never been to the Barossa. I've done the Mount Barker when it was there. We did the 3 in the day, the Mount Barker. I've done Norwood the last couple of years. I've done plenty at Adelaide Oval, but I'll focus on the Hawks game. And I like to get to the last game as well, because I think it's a nice way to finish off. And because I do a bit of work over there, it's when you can relax and unwind a little bit. But I would dare say that you might see me at the big house occasionally. It's a big gas. So, but yeah, looking forward to getting stuck in, gather around. Absolutely love it. Mate, we're going to get into the games now. And just as a reminder, what we do is a jump on Bet Sniper, as you all can, and look at their odds comparison tool. And that is where we get the best odds for the head-to-head market. And then whoever's topping our poll each week is where we take the line from when we put out polls. And ask, where do you want your same game multi coming from this week? And then we usually just use the line there, because that's where most of our punters are heading, whether it's Sportsbet or Tab. I think they were a draw last week, Harrow. Anyway, yep. Adelaide v Carlton. Adelaide's $1.18. Carlton, you can get $6.08, which is specific. The line's 34.5. Adelaide have looked good at times in their opening 4 games. They open gather round again. The focus will be on them. You think their tails will be up. I'm interested to your thoughts here, Harrow, because I don't see how this doesn't become a really messy night for Carlton.
Yeah, just looking at, you want to first look at who the two sides have played so far. Carlton have played Sydney, obviously, and got pumped. And then they've played Richmond, Melbourne, and North Melbourne. So 3 sides probably in the bottom half of the ladder, though Melbourne are showing quite a lot at the moment. You flip that over to the Crows, and they've played away to Collingwood when Collingwood had already played a game and they were first up, and they were far too good for the Pies. Then they've played the Western Bulldogs, who I think when they played them, they were just about premiership favourite. They played Geelong down at Geelong, and then they got Freo, who we really rate as well. And they've been competitive with they lost to the Doggies by 6 points, they lost to the Cats by 8, and they lost to Freo by 2. So the form that these two sort of sides are coming through couldn't be more different, really. What are you laughing at?
Different, isn't it?
Yeah. And so it could be leading people to maybe underrate the Crows a little bit. They haven't actually impressed me to the eye a hell of a lot, but you do have to look at what they've been playing against. And so here on their home deck, you kind of like the fact that they're coming off, 3 losses in a row as well. Like, they're going to be fairly fired up, aren't they? And it's a bad week to get them. And I'm feeling a little bit sorry for the Baggers at the moment. They kind of just, I don't know if they're their own worst enemy or whatnot, but it's just not clicking. And now they lose Wieders. Probably they're one of their most important players as well. And we saw that they decided to play Lewis Young on Tom Lynch, even with Wiedering in the side back in round 1? And Lynch had just the 9 shots on goal, Wally. So
yeah,
I just look at Filthy here, and he hasn't really had a chance, to fill up against a lower ranked opponent yet. And I'm sure if you shop around, you can probably do better. But I found $1.85 for him to kick 3, with probably a bit of upside on that as well, Wally. So I'm happy to play that. I think that the Crows will cover this 34.5. I think last year they won this contest by 50. And Carlton probably, look, they didn't go great last year. They're probably similar level at the moment. But that Wiedering out, it's going to be big for them. He was a real organiser down there, despite being one of the best, individual players that they've got. So happy to play those areas, mate. The total points, I had a little lean to the under, but it's come down a fair bit, and I'm probably happy to leave that. Couple of players. I just want to touch on Jagger. Obviously a high possession player, but you got to watch the teams, Wall, and I say this to the punters every week. Cherrett came back into the team, and that saw Jagger just do the 23% time in the middle last week, and it showed because he only had the 17 disposals. So we could get a line, and this isn't an easier matchup either. We could get a line for Jagger around that 25. I'd probably be happy to take him on. He's a little bit on watch for me too. He did a couple of soft things, which I know, and to be fair, when other players do soft things, I call them out. He's only, in his first year, so you give him a bit of grace, but I do want to see him making sure he's doing the hard things as well as not just trying to get the ball. The other area I didn't mind here, Wally, was Walshy got the tag last week. Crows won't be tagging Sam Walsh, I'll give you the tip. And I love backing these blokes bouncing back off a tag. And Sam Walsh is that area, in this one. Another guy that I've kept an eye on here, Wally, is Cook for the Crows. He's probably someone nobody would know if you looked at him or whatnot, but he's actually looked pretty good. And the wingers against Carlton is people are looking for trends. This is a strong trend. It's been going on for over a season now. It's continued into this season. And he only needs 15 to get his line. So I feel like there's plenty there for the punters, mate. And it'll probably you might fall asleep at halftime in this one. The boys getting flogged.
You can't create a same-game multi out of that to start your gather round. Well, I'm not sitting here, Harrow, because that is a perfect way to kick us off. I absolutely love that. The line. I'm glad we aligned on the line there, Harrow. All right, mate. Next one we've got Collingwood v Freo. The Pies $2.65, Freo $1.57. The line's 12.5. This is another one where I look at this and go, 2 goals for Freo. I really like Freo. We've seen it. They went to Adelaide last week against the team that is better, and they got the job done. So they've had that run into this. The Pies are a bit beat up. We don't know if Dacos is even going to be playing yet. And if he is he 100%? 2 goals for Freo. I love the Freo line here.
I'm with you there, Wally. I mean, I know that we disagreed on a few last week.
And you were right. I just want to be clear on that. That should have been on my out selections. Me getting ahead of myself and trying to come to the table with this. Fuck, I came to the table with the Tigers that didn't have Nank and Rich and Lynch. Jeez. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But
no, I did. Mate, I did remind you of that actually when it saved you a few bucks. I hope, mate. Saved you a few dollars.
Yeah, no. I listened. I might come to the table with some ideas, but I do always listen when they're shut down. But mate, Freo 12.5-point line.
Yeah, mate, I'm so keen on this too. We just saw the Pies go down to the Lions by like 19 scoring shots. I mean, that's flogged basically. And if you look at the rest of their form too, like they couldn't beat the Crows in round one when the Crows were first up. They'd had a game. We already talked about that. They beat the Giants, who had like half a side in that night. And so there's just nothing in their form that I'm seeing. And I'm actually looking at their individual players and I'm seeing drop-offs. And it makes sense because half of them are at the end of their time, you know. So Degoe just doesn't look like the player that he used to be. His last two games, he's had 71 and 50% midfield time, and he can only get to 15 disposals, and he's not having that impact. What I'm really worried about for the Pies is it's the contested stuff where they're getting smashed. I think they're 17th for clearances, 14th for inside 50s. The clearance differential, I think they're almost the worst in the comp right now. So they're just getting beaten in the contest, and you can't really win games of footy if you can't win clearance in contest and generate inside 50s. And they get Freo, who are excellent in that area, Wally. And I just want to bring up Freo's profile while I'm doing that. And maybe you could just say something what you think about it.
Yeah, but I'm okay. So in terms of what we've seen, you talk about the contested ball, the balls they got in that midfield that are going to be able to win the footy, like Sarong, like Brayshaw, and I mean you're right about that as well. Like Sarong, Brayshaw has been a little bit hit and miss, but Sarong's been on. Like we saw it again on the weekend on this ground. That's the other thing, Harrow. You spoke earlier, and you definitely spoke about it after the opening round. It's good when these teams have a run. I love when they have a run on a ground that others don't play on the week before. So Freo have had a trial run against a far better opposition and how they're going at the moment, or a better opposition. I know Collingwood, anyway, but against a better opposition at the moment, I think we can all agree, with better form lines on this ground a week ago.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, that all lines up for me.
I think that's exactly, I had that in my notes too, Wally, so well played. But yeah, as I just looked at the Pies profile, with them being smashed at clearance and contested and everything like that, you flip over to Freo and they're actually third in the comp for clearance and contested. And so it's just like we saw it against the Brisbane Lions as well. So I'm very, very happy to be with Freo at that 2-goal margin, mate. And I think that I've been keen to be against the Pies from the beginning of the season. This is just another good opportunity. They're still being rated quite highly by the market, but I think there's a big gap that's opened up between the top 7 sides in the comp and everything below. Like the gap between, and Collingwood might be like an average 10, 12th type team, I think. But the gap between Freo, who are looking like a 5, 6 sort of areas, is huge, and we're seeing that play out, and they can't take it easy. So very keen on Freo here, mate. Happy to be there. So everybody likes a couple of players as well when we do our preview. So look, I've already talked about this, but it's the defenders versus the Pies going very well. And so you want to maybe have a look at a Clark for Freo. Also, Luke Ryan, he's taking a bunch of kickouts as well. And Judd McVee, he's just finding his feet, I think. And he was really good here last week. He had the 23 against the Crows. And with this matchup, he only needs 16 to beat his line. So I think that, yeah, that's where we're going to be in this one, mate.
Love it, mate. Love that a lot. All right. That's the Thursday and Friday game. So that gets us kicked off for the round. Now we move into Saturday's games, and we've got the slate of the 4 games. It's weird, as I said, with all of this, we've got 4 full games on Saturday. It starts with North Melbourne, Brisbane. North Melbourne's as big as $5.70. Brisbane $1.18, and the line's 34.5. I think that says a lot less about North because they were impressive again. Getting through it was Carlton. I know they've had a favourable draw early, but they are 3-1. But Brisbane showed us what they have. Brisbane now, they did their little 0-2 at the start, which they can do, and they don't mind doing. And then they just went bang, bang, and they've showed us what they're about. And they look like the premiers again, and they are going to be so hard to beat, Harrow.
Yeah, it's a little bit scary for the rest of the comp, isn't it, what Brisbane are, how they're shaping up right now. And, again, like I think we've been seeing a lot of the good teams playing the good teams and the poor teams playing the poor teams. And you look at who North have played so far, Port, West Coast, Essendon and Carlton, they're going to get a wake-up now. A little bit like what West Coast got against Sydney. And we spoke about that. Yep. Yeah, we spoke about West Coast. All right, they look like they're going okay, but look at what they've been playing. And this is going to be the same for North Melbourne. I'm not saying that Brisbane are going to win by 128 points, but they're going to beat the line of 30, 32 or so? Am I still right with that?
So our line on this one is 34.5.
34.5.
Question without notice. Do you think, because I was thinking about this the other day, do we think it's actually good for the competition if we do start like this and the AFL try and go, let's get good teams playing good teams early and the poorer teams playing the poorer teams early? So you're getting some good footy. You should be getting close footy on both sides. But what it does do is that it gives those teams in the bottom half of the 8 to make a start and get some confidence, and that can actually drive them up the ladder a little bit. Because what we do see, doesn't matter, when you're getting 3, 4, 5 wins early, a lot of the time you go on with it. What do you think? Do you think it doesn't matter, or do you like the fact that we have had 4 rounds in, a lot of the poorer teams playing each other, a lot of the better teams playing each other?
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. Obviously, it's helping a club like North. They might get a few extra members jump on, where if they had started the season against some of the stronger sides, maybe they'd all be, I don't know. But, mate, I'm always just really thinking about stuff from a punting perspective. It's kind of, it does actually work out okay because it's opening up opportunities like what we saw with the Swannies playing a West Coast side probably without people understanding how they're going to go against the better opposition. But the big problem that the league's got, not that I care so much, is that the gulf between the good and the bad is getting bigger. And there's a real divide in the ladder right now. And I don't see this improving by bringing in more teams. I would actually love to see them go the other way. We're going to strip it back to 16 teams. We're going to spread the talent. We're going to spread the talent out amongst 16 teams instead of 19. And then
we get rid of?
Mate, I don't really care.
Well, that's some ideas, Harrow.
Yeah. Well, whoever's got the least fans, mate. So I don't really care who you get rid of. But I would like to see a higher quality competition. And but anyway, it's never going to happen because they're all about expansion. And getting bigger is not always getting better, and it's certainly diluting the quality of the product, mate, 100%. You think back, Wally, when we were growing up, and I think there was only 12 teams at one point.
There was 12
in the early days.
It went to 14 in the late 80s, and then 15 sharply after that. With Adelaide in 1991,
mate,
and then we saw two more in the 90s.
To get a game in a 12-team competition, you've got to be in the best 250 players in the league. Now, we've got players, when there's 19 teams running around, you could be the 400th, 500th best player in the country, and you can be getting a game of AFL footy. Now, this is like Premier cricket. Like if you're playing club cricket, you can be in the best 500 players in the country easily, and you're just a clubby. It's insane.
11 players play at the top level for their country.
Yeah, and how much better is the product for it?
66 play for their state. And then the products, and look, the thing is, Harrow, with this, I agree with you on all of this. I don't disagree. My question to you on this just quickly, and I don't want to get us completely off track. Last year, we saw 10 teams that were clearly better than the other 8. We did. And Sydney and Western Bulldogs that missed the 8, people going, if either of these teams make it in, they can win it. So my answer back is, isn't it better to have 10 teams that can all win the flag and then 8 teams that aren't any good than a more even comp, but probably only 4 teams that can win the flag? There was still until there was a month of footy to go last year, and people were genuinely thinking if Sydney get on a run, they can do it. There's 10 teams that can win the premiership. So I know what you're saying. The gap hasn't been bigger between the top and bottom half, but I don't think we've ever seen that where there's 10 teams that could win it a month out.
Perhaps, yeah. I mean, you might be making a case for Division 1, Division 2. You get it's possible you could do that. But
10 and 10. I don't know what it'll look like, but
anyway, we're getting a bit away from our
gone off track
from our Onewood.
We are way out. So let's get back to Brisbane. So we're backing Brisbane at the line minus 34.5. That's done. What else? Mate,
I know they don't have a habit of winning by big margins, but they did just beat Collingwood by 19 scoring shots. So maybe they're looking to flip that, and they're just going to do what they please. They have a big break into this, and then they got another big break after it. I don't see – there's not really any reason why they shouldn't just put the foot down. So that's where I'm looking like, because also, they get Harris Andrews back. We didn't really see North get fully exposed without Jerry on the weekend. I think they lost the dude who filled his spot too. So I don't know. They're going to get hammered in the ruck. Yeah. And those Brisbane inside mids are just going to get first hands all day. It's going to could get ugly, this one, Wally. So that's where I'm looking anyway. And look, from a player's point of view, I actually might I had a look at some goal kickers because I thought that Brisbane might kick a bit of a cricket score in this one. But geez, their odds were all a little bit short as well. So the market was kind of onto it a little bit. So I think I'm just happy to be playing, back in Brisbane at the line, mate, and cheering that on.
Love that.
Also the ruck situation too. You could have some fun with the Brisbane rucks if you can work that out.
Brisbane rucks. All right, if you can work that out, I love it, Haram. All right, next game, Essendon and Melbourne. This is going to be played at Adelaide Oval, while Sydney Gold Coast is going to be played at Norwood, just in case you're wondering. But at least people are going to get to see this excitement machine that is Melbourne at the moment. Essendon's $4.20. Melbourne are $1.26. If you'd have told me before the start of the season you have a 26.5-point start for the Bombers against the D's, I would have said you were crazy. But now I'm wondering if that's enough.
Yeah,
because Melbourne looked amazing again on the weekend, and Essendon are in all sorts.
I just want to talk about Maxi Gawn for a second, Wally, and obviously he's got a great matchup here against Blackiston. I think Max Gawn, if he's not, he's the best ruckman in my lifetime. I can't really talk about before, but is that even really in doubt now?
The best ever?
Well, the best in my life, our lifetime. The best in
lifetime. The only thing, I think he's gone past. I've always said Dean Cox because of the way he changed the game, but I've always said Dean Cox and Simon Madden are the best two I'd seen. I caught the back half of Simon Madden. I think it's probably more just the nostalgia of people telling me how good he was. But I think Max Gawn's number one. Cox, I just rated Dean Cox so highly. And maybe I'm overrating him and underrating Gawn, that it is a discussion. But, yeah, he's probably the best. He's probably the best of all time. Yeah. But let's be honest, he probably is. He's the best of our lifetime.
If it was like Space Jam for AFL, and the aliens are coming, they're bringing a side down to play us tomorrow, me and you have to pick the team, For me, Max Gawn's first player picked and he's captain. So that's how highly I'm rating this guy. And I know that there was a lot of people tipping up Gawn's unders against. I saw it with a few of the Cappers League guys were tipping up Gawn's unders, and I was like, you got to be so brave because how well is he playing? He's putting out career numbers right now, and I know Witsy had a good record against him, but you got to really factor in the current form. And Max isn't in normal current form, so. Anyway, so I've had a bit of I love Maxi Gawn. So well done to him. And you can back him against a weak opponent this week, again, against a guy who's really not a ruck. So he's going to have his way with him. So that'll be fun to watch.
Yep.
The Bombers actually, they'll get a couple of players back here, which is going to help them a little bit. I don't think it's going to obviously help them get the points or anything like that. But look, I lean to the D's at the 26.5. I think that they're probably a good play there. I saw the Bombers were a lot more competitive against the Doggies when they started to possess the ball a bit more, and I feel like the Bombers might shift lanes a little bit and play this slower chip mark game a little bit just to keep them in the game a bit longer. And they did switch modes between that last year a bit too. So be careful of that. A guy who I'm enjoying from the Bombers is Archie Roberts. He got his 30 on the weekend against the Doggies. The D's also, they will concede disposals to that type of play. I'm happy to be around that. I think that tag element could be a play here with Tholstrup, who's been doing this job.
Yeah.
Not every game, but it really does line up for him here with a Zach Merritt running around. And so happy to have a look at that. Just another one that I've got written down. Oh, Cozzy Pickett, mate. There's no one on Essendon's side that can put the brakes on Cozzy. He's flying at the moment as well. So I think if you can get Cozzy to get his 25, he's playing full-time mid now. So I had a look at him and he's doing that 70% sort of CBAs. And like he had his 30-odd against Carlton. What did he do on the weekend? I'll just double-check. But he's absolutely flying. And so I'm happy to keep playing Cozzy in this new role. I think it's actually helping having his little cousin up forward because it's like, well, we've got to pick it up forward now. We can leave one in the midfield as well.
Yeah, he's good too. He's exciting.
Yeah.
And I love that. And also when you have that, when you've got like a connection like that, whether it's friends, family, whatever, you've got this level of chemistry. And anytime you've got chemistry from a midfielder or forward, it's a good thing, Harrow.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, mate, it's going to be an interesting game, that one, because if Melbourne actually turn up like they have an Essendon do, I'll say this. I think you're right. What you're saying, like Essendon's going to get a couple of players back. This is not we play the line, but this could get really ugly. And then if it does, it's where do they turn? So I'm just saying, if Melbourne come out and win this by 10 goals, what do Essendon like? What do they do? Because it's just not working.
Yeah, actually, Essendon are showing little signs of improvement, Wally, each week. They certainly, they only went down to North Melbourne by 2 goals and actually had, 3 or 4 more scoring shots there. So I think if you wiped out their game against Port, all right, they're not maybe going as badly as what everybody is saying, even though it's looked terrible to the eye. And then against the Doggies again on the weekend, and it's 34 points. It's not, 44 points. No, 34 points. So it's not as bad as what people are sort of looking at.
The margin came in late. Essendon kicked those goals late at North to bring that margin in, and the Doggies had them on toast early. And then I know Essendon improved, but I feel like if the Doggies needed to win by a lot, they probably could have.
Yeah.
Anyway, wait and see.
Right.
You know better than me. Yeah. You know this shit better than me. So wait and see. All right, next game is an absolute cracker. It's Sydney versus Gold Coast. Sydney's $1.83. Gold Coast, I think we can get as big as $2 there. The line's 1.5. I really like the Swans here, Harrow.
You're talking my language, Wally.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
It's we're in alignment here quite a lot. I don't know if I should be worried about that or not.
Probably.
But yeah, look, I'm just keen to be with the Swans as much as possible at the moment. And they're just flying, and I've done a lot of work on them, and I've compared the Swannies team that they've got this year to the 2 grand final teams that they've had in the last 4 years. And this is by far a stronger Swannies team than what they made 2 grand finals
100%.
with. And so that's where I'm rating this team right now. And so anytime I get an opportunity to get the Swans just to win, anything like $1.80, maybe Brisbane would be the only time I wouldn't be looking to jump on that. And we get that opportunity here. I think Gold Coast will probably show a lot more this week than what they did last week, especially when Dimmer is ripping shreds off them. He was clearly out-coached actually on the weekend. You could really say, and this, mate, Stephen King, I've not been more impressed with him than what an upgrade. They've gone from Goody to this guy who really knows what he's doing, and look at the difference it's made. Anyway, he made these changes, and Gold Coast looked lost after halftime. You could even see the players fighting with each other about positioning and, where are you meant to be and everything. And Melbourne were basically running rings around them, and Dimmer was losing it. So we will see a better looking Gold Coast, but I don't think that they're going to be good enough to beat Sydney, who are they're it's hard to read too much into a 128-point win. But you look outside of that, I can give them an excuse for losing to Hawthorn. They're off a 5-day break in that with injuries. And so I'm not going to penalise their form too much for that loss. And everything outside of that looks really good. So I'm going to be with the Swannies here, mate, just at the $1.80 just to win. I absolutely love it. And outside of that, it's a little bit of a trickier one for disposals, especially wanting to take any Gold Coast players. Sydney are looking really quite stingy, so just be a little bit careful there. Noah Anderson, he's a bit off, isn't he? I'm not sure what's going on with him.
Same. It's weird because obviously we've got around now the last couple of years. We had him as an early Brownlow bet last year at the start of the season. He's one I always look at because I feel you always get that $26 to $34, even though he was starting as one of the favourites at the end of last season. But, mate, I'm a massive Noah Anderson fan, as you know, because he should be playing for Hawthorn. But the bottom line is that he just has not looked right. He has not looked right. And look, this sort of game where you're not worried about disposals, going back to your point earlier, this is at Norwood Oval. Is this a Charlie Curnow, Ben King special?
Yeah, I mean, there's also, look, when you look at the value where the value is, I mean, Amadi's also up there, and he's the one I think you can nearly get $1.80 for him just to kick the 2. So that's possibly maybe a better spot than Curnow. It should be fairly high scoring, this one, but also with Noah Anderson here, just think about the James Jordan role in this, because that's he's been there before and done a job. So consider that. But Heaney's $2 to kick 2. He's drifting forward a lot, always does. So, and how good is he? God, I think I've got Gawn 1, Heaney 2. They're when the aliens come, mate, that's the team I'm picking. Gawn 1, Heaney 2, Bont 3.
You can take them. I'll take Bont and Dacos, mate, and then we'll be fine.
We'll be in trouble. Anyway.
Hey, Matty Rowell, do we want to be looking at Matty Rowell? We're talking about inside mids, and as you said earlier, didn't have the best week, but he's got another game back under his belt. Yeah. Is Matty Rowell one we'll look at here for disposals if we get a generous line, that is?
I think he needs another game just to show that he's got some form. Yeah, he had 14 disposals on the weekend. He stunk it up. So, I'm probably not looking at a Rowell until he's – I like to let players show me something before backing him.
Fair enough.
It's a tried strategy, Wooly. You don't really want to be jumping on guys before they've shown something. So happy to let Rao get into his season. And once he shows something,
sorry, Harry, did you say he had 14 disposals last week?
Yeah.
In a loss, so just the 2 Brownlow votes for Rao last week then with the 14 in a loss? Usually needs about 17 to pick up the 3 votes.
That's good for you, Wally.
Gather around, mate. I'm up and
about. All right, what are we up to?
All right, mate, next game. So stay tuned on that one. As I said, over the weekend, you'll see on our socials, on Insta, mainly on X for updates in terms of things we like. But now as we get a little bit deeper into the weekend, teams haven't been announced, or teams haven't been announced at all for these, but a lot of these teams, we're not going to know final teams until really late in the piece over the weekend. Excuse me. All right. Saturday night, and this worries me. Hawthorn take on the Western Bulldogs. Now, Hawthorn at a price are as big as $1.68. The Western Bulldogs are $2.62. And that's in, like, you're not going to be able to get that spread of those 2 high prices. It doesn't make they're the best of each. But honestly, I'm just looking at this and going, the line's 8.5, Harrow. Now, I know they've got a couple of injuries, the Dogs. So Tim English is out, which is big. That is a big out for them. They're also losing Ed Richards, which is, as we know, another out. Because, he didn't play last week, and I think he's going to be out again. But, Sanders stepped up, and so did a lot of the other players. The other thing is I don't know where we're at with Jack Gunston, exactly what's going to be happening there, because obviously he was carrying something late. Hopefully he does play. But it's Saturday night, so we don't know any of these things. I think that Hawthorn at 8.5 line is vulnerable.
I'm not going to be touching the Doggies. So the Dogs rely so much on their high end, and you start peeling back 3 guys out of there, which I rate Libba as that high end as well, with obviously Richards and the ruckman English. They start to become more like a normal-looking team rather than and I thought it showed actually a little bit when the Bombers got their game going a little bit with that kick mark style, that the Dogs looked a little bit vulnerable, mate. And so with those 3 guys out, I'm pretty happy to be with Hawthorn, actually, Wally. So, wow. Hawthorn really got nothing. They're wanting for nothing, really. Obviously, Day, but you can't really count him. Now, if Gunston doesn't get up, what I noticed, actually, was Mitch Lewis looked a lot more dangerous all of a sudden when Gunston went off the ground. The Dogs do have a bit of a weakness to key forwards. We've seen it over the course of sort of more last year, but I still think there's a bit of a weakness there. And so if Gunston's not named, I'll be keen to jump on Mitch Lewis to kick 2, starting at 250. Or you've got Chol if you want to we've backed Chol a couple of times this year, haven't we? And God, he's bad to watch with his kicking. He's so frustrating. But look, he got there on the weekend. He's had a lot of shots on goal, actually. If he can fix that up, he's probably got a 4 or a 5 in him. So happy to play Hawthorn, mate. Wait for the teams. I'm kind of hoping Gunston's going to miss, and it's going to create a really nice opportunity for us with Mitch Lewis and Chol. So, and they're also playing the 2 rucks, which is meaning Chol's playing a lot closer to goal as well than what he was when he was doing that second ruck type stuff. So happy to play in those areas. Now, you saw this guy on the weekend. I think he's had a bit of a role change, Wally, and it's Josh Ward. He's getting a lot more of the ball, and Hawthorn are doing a bit more handballing. It's kind of suiting him. And he's had over 25 in his last 3. And you can get, I think his line's around that 22, 23. So I'll just try and find it while I'm talking. But here he is, 23.5. So he's been well clear of that in his last 3 games. I think that he's getting more involved now, and he's probably a bet for us. The other guy, look, he's flying at the moment. It's Matt Kennedy. I backed him on the weekend. Loved the fact that Richards was out. He's going to just play a full game in the midfield. He's been over 27 in all 4 of his games this season, and you can still get him at 26.5, Wally. So if you want one more as well, I think that Newcomb, he quite likes the Adelaide Oval, doesn't he? He likes the little bit narrower, tighter confines. And we know that the doggies, they don't tag. Although they're a tough midfield to beat, I feel like, Newcomb, especially with there's going to be a big advantage for Hawthorn with the ruck situation here. I don't actually think the doggies might have to play like Lob and Darcy a lot through the ruck, which is going to mess them up at either end of the ground a little bit too. So they're going to be a little bit vulnerable here, the Dogs. I'd like to see the Dogs lose a couple. I know they've got a couple of tough games coming up. Might even open up an opportunity to back them at a big price to win the flag at some point. I do like topping up on teams when their price blows out, but I think they might get done here, and they've got a couple of tough games coming up with a few blokes out. Then they're probably going to come good later. So not losing hope on the doggies, but I think that they're in for a bit of a tough one here, mate.
I love hearing that, Harrow. I'll tell you what. The other thing for them is, I agree with you. I think that once they're at full strength, they'll be great later in the year. But it is a little bit of a worry about their depth if they are falling off a cliff with 2 and 3 players coming out. But as we said this with Sydney earlier in the year, any team when they lost Goulden and Heaney against us, any team that loses their 2 best players, it's going to be hard to go and beat another team that's a finals contender. All right, mate. Heading to the Sunday games, Geelong v West Coast. Geelong as short as $1.10, West Coast as big as $7. The line's 45.5. This one's at Norwood.
Okay, Norwood game. Yeah, so I want to obviously see the teams as well. I think West Coast will get a couple back here, which is only going to help them, obviously coming off a massive loss. I know the Cats, this is a little one to be mindful of here, Wally. They have a 5-day break into the doggies, I believe, after this game. And I think it's the sort of game where the Cats, they will just be looking to get the points and get out of there. They've got a 6-day break into this one, followed by a 5-day break into the Dogs. So they do future plan, all this sort of stuff. They're very strategic, the Cats. I think that they're going to be trying to put this game to bed early and just walk away with the points, not worried about the margin. And I think the West Coast, they're a good chance to bounce back here. They're going to be, I think the ground will really suit them as well because they're trying to play as a high-pressure sort of side. And I actually think West Coast will cover the 45.5 here, mate. So that's where I'll be happy to play. This is more a bet based on, sort of motivational factors and whatnot. So that's where I'm looking to play. And I know West Coast got beat by 128 points, and it's hard to actually say this. They still had a crack, I thought. They actually still had a bit of a crack. They didn't wasn't like for a lack of effort. Sydney, from my eye, were just so hot that there was no stopping them. And once the West Coast couldn't sustain that high pressure, the floodgates kind of just opened. So, so happy to play the West Coast getting a big start here, Wally. I think it's not a bad area. Now, from player disposals point of view, Bailey Smith, he's absolutely flying right now, isn't he? So keep an eye out for him. I know his line is starting to get up there a bit. Harley Reid got attention on the weekend. I'll be interested to see if Geelong do the same thing here. I probably won't go under him because his line's only 19.5. Yeah. And we saw that when he was getting that attention, they flipped him to the back line. He got a few kickouts. He kind of got his numbers up a little bit in the end there anyway. So, just be a little bit careful around that one. So some guys whose lines aren't getting too high and might be really well suited by this venue, it is a Tom Atkins, mate. And I know he had a quiet game against the Hawks. This guy doesn't have too many quiet games in a row. And as a Cats player, he's probably one that's not going to get rested if they get well in front. And from the West Coast perspective, if Harley Reid is getting that tag, that kind of bull player I can see doing really well on the smaller ground, it is Jack Graham, mate. And so I expect him to do pretty well. Now, it's interesting that this one, Geelong have managed to get themselves a game at Norwood, especially when they're the only – oh, hang on a minute. Yeah, sorry. I nearly stuffed that up. But I thought, Norwood is the skinny ground. And it's just like Geelong, isn't it? Yeah, yep. So they're the one, it's almost like a home ground for them. They're gonna be able to handle this ground better than any other team. So that's a little advantage there, but I don't think they need too many advantages when it comes to playing West Coast, and they're going to have their eye on bigger games ahead, Wally.
So they'll get the job done here, we feel, but it may not be as big as some people think because they're, as you said, they're such a professional club. They're going 6-day break this end, 5-day break against a proper opponent next week. Let's just big early, get out to a lead, protect it, go home with the 4 points and focus on next week.
I tell you what, if you're a brave, Wally, if you're a little bit brave, you could try and find a market with West Coast to win the last quarter. That could be well in play. Let's just imagine a Geelong side of 55 points up at 3/4 time with a 5-day break coming. West Coast, no reason for them to pull up at all. They're just going to try and play the game out. And I could just imagine, and you could get a big price for something like this. I know this probably isn't going to happen, but I'm just looking for markets at the moment, and it's like, I don't know, West Coast to win the last quarter between 9 and 16 points. That's $12. But I'm sure there's better markets, not that sort of bracketed market to play. But if you could find it, I can't find it right now. But I could just see West Coast winning the last quarter. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is good, Harrow.
Here
Love
we
this.
Go. Yeah.
All right, we've got 2 more games. One of them is out at the Barossa, and then we'll finish at the Adelaide Oval, of course. GWS play Richmond. GWS at $1.16. Richmond's $5.60. The line's 34.5, Harrow.
I do expect GWS to get a few players back here, and they've had a bit of a freshen up too. We've seen the sides that have had a freshen up after playing actually come out looking really good. So I feel like that's a big advantage to the Giants here, mate, getting that freshen up, getting some players back. I could see now the Giants actually getting on a bit of a run. So it's probably a bad week for Richmond actually to get the Giants, and they're kind of struggling a bit themselves, just with a bit of availability. The guys that they're missing, they're just so important to them. So I'm definitely leaning to the Giants here, mate. And also there's one trend that I've picked up on here, and I think it's going to continue. Richmond, they just got such an inexperienced forward line. It's bringing the total score in their games down, and we played that to a T against Port Adelaide, mate, on the weekend, and we think punters who were really tuning in, they could have been playing some lower lines there too. It's you look at what Richmond did last year in competitive games, they had some really low-scoring games. So I don't mind continuing on with that theme, and the line is 180 here. It's going to take a fair bit for Richmond. Richmond have got to score a fair bit for the game to go over 180, and they're just not able to score right now, Wally. So I'm pretty keen to play into that. From a player point of view, Richmond, they do have a bit of a trend here giving up to backmen. The way that they push their forwards right up, it lets the backs share the ball around together and switch and whatnot. And we know that GWS are happy to oblige with that sort of thing. And it's your Himmelbergs, your Fonties, and then obviously the 2 guns down there, they can both fill up too. So that's the areas I'm looking to play in this one, Wally.
Yeah, nice. So Ash, Whitfield, Himmelberg, Fonte, play those there. And GWS obviously to cover and under 180.5. All right, mate. Finish with an interesting one here, Harrow. Neither team has been overly impressive so far this year. In even in their wins. Port Adelaide's $2.30. St Kilda travel. And we were the favourites last year in this match and got absolutely pumped. $1.63. The line's 7.5 points. Surely Port Adelaide turn up to this.
I think
they Kilda as a favourite away from home like this.
I just think they're just a much better team. So
yeah, I think you're probably right.
Mate, I tell you what, you give Ross Lyon a week off to plan for a game.
Yeah, good shout.
And we saw with Sydney, like they had, and even with Hawthorn actually, they had. I heard it was fantastic hearing the Wizard speak about the extra planning that they were able to put in to the game with having had this big break coming into Geelong. And he gave away a couple of really interesting insights. And he said, look, I knew I was going to get Mullen. I had 2 weeks to plan for it. And I decided that I'm not going to try and outrun him because he's just a great runner. I'm just trying to smash him in some big contests. And what happened? Yeah. Like the Wizard only had 14 and he had coaches' votes.
Yeah.
Because he won. He put Mullen under pressure in some big moments, and that was his plan the whole way. And so anyway, so St Kilda now have had the opportunity to sit back, watch Port Adelaide play, and have a bit of a break themselves. They will have done a ton of planning for this, and I know Ross, he's one coach I've got a lot of faith in. And I think that St Kilda they're a better team anyway. I know Port Adelaide, they can come out a lot better and hotter at home, but I just don't think they're very good. And for these reasons, Wally, I'm keen to be with St Kilda. You could back them to win or you could back them at the line. Either way, I think it's a pretty good spot for us here, mate.
Great. And obviously there's a fair bit of time before we see teams and that. In terms of players to watch, is this one of the ones where we really want to see the teams first, or is there any early?
I got a couple, mate. Look, we know the Saints are conceding to backs, and we did see Darcy Byrne-Jones move into defence and have a pretty good game for Port last week. Now, I heard him interviewed about this, and they asked him, "Is that role going to continue?" And he kind of said, "I've got no idea." He goes, "We haven't had the conversation." He goes, "I didn't really even know it was going to happen last week." So we don't know, mate, whether it's going to continue. But if anyone does know, then that sort of information would be really good because you'd be able to back him in a matchup like this. Now, the other guy who's really going well is Aliir. He's the sort of player who could go quite well against the Saints as well, and you're getting – his line's getting up there a little bit, but he's in a pretty good spot here. Now, the Saints, they do have taggers they can deploy, and I think is it Garcia? Is it Garcia? Well, you got two blokes.
Garcia?
Yeah, is he the one? I think it is Garcia. I get him and Boxall mixed up for some reason, but I think Garcia might get the job on Butters here, and Butters could be too good for him. We don't know, but he's going to have his work cut out. They're not going to let him have it all his own way. So you consider Butters unders. And look, that's where I've got to on this one, Wally. I'm just really mostly I think the Saints are going to turn up here and be too good for Port.
Very good, Harrow. Well, mate, we've gone through an absolute stack. Punters that have stayed with us get the rewards of your best bet nice and early. Who are we going with, Harrow?
Wally, I know I have two really, and I'm going to split them. The Swannies, but I don't want to have the Swannies 2 weeks in a row. And so I'm going to go with Freo. Mainly because I love being right and being able to stir up Collingwood supporters when I'm right. So just for the bit of banter. And if I'm wrong, Collingwood supporters come at me. I can cop it. But I'm very keen on Freo to win by 2 goals, mate.
Yeah, Barrow. Well, in the racing world, the experts always have their best and their next best. So we've got Freo on top of the line and Swans just head-to-head, really, as the next best. Harrow, you've been great, mate. Look, we've all teams have played now, 4 games each. We're back to level pegging, and we've got a few runs of non-bye rounds, which is great. We've got 9 games of footy this weekend. Look, obviously the AFL don't need to fixture the shit out of this because it sells itself as a weekend, but we've got a couple of good games there. An interesting one to finish off the weekend. So I hope everyone enjoys it. If you get over and you see me, come grab me and we'll have a beer. Harrow, you've been great as always, mate. Enjoy Gather Round, and I'll see you next week. Imagine what you can be buying instead. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.